Heavy rains overnight and throughout last week have damaged roads in Gauteng, leaving residents vulnerable and causing damage to property. The deluge has meant the forced closure of some roads and low-lying bridges have proven most challenging to cross. Ahmed Kajee is crisscrossing Johannesburg. He is currently with the Johannesburg EMS. Just place yourself for us, Ahmed, as you're standing by to speak to the Johannesburg Emergency Services.
Thanks very much, Tudu. We are in the western parts of Johannesburg, in the Florida Rudderport part of the city, and the rain seems to have subsided, at least in this part of the city, which may actually be promising to certain low-lying areas and to those who may not have adequate infrastructure either at their businesses or at their households. But just to recap where we were this morning, out in the south of Johannesburg near Soweto, we had seen just outside the Orlando Stadium various regions around that particular area. Households very close to riverbanks and to streams seem to be facing a lot of difficulty when it comes through to the heavy rains, and that will be of major concern for those people and those residing in those areas, not just for those living in the households, but also for people walking around those river streams. If they happen to fall into that fast-moving water, it can be really detrimental to their health and perhaps even be life-threatening as well. But in terms of emergency services responses, they have been on high alert over the last week, have sent out various releases and various statements to the public, just asking them and calling on the public to just ensure that they are driving safely, they are walking in safe areas and doing as much as they possibly can to just maintain their safety and security for themselves and for people around them as well. But let's bring into the conversation Mr. Robert Mulaudzi from the Johannesburg Emergency Services. Mr. Mulaudzi, thanks very much for your time today. Can you maybe just take us through what we have seen around the city over the last 24 to 48 hours?
Yeah, we have received a lot of rain throughout the city. So far, we don't have any major incidents which were reported, except the incident which you just reported on in Nensfield. We have got our monitoring teams in all 7 regions of the city. Areas like Alexander, Stratler area, areas like Kliptown, areas like Ivory Park. We know that those areas have got river streams which are crossing across those areas, which makes those people vulnerable, and already most of those residents are already in a flood line. So you'll normally have situations where some households might be affected by this rainfall. So far we've got those monitoring teams there. We also have our specialized unit, which is a swiftwater rescue unit, which is a unit which responds to water-related emergencies, which is on high alert. We have got all our 30 fire stations throughout the city on high alert also. So we just want to continue to encourage our motorists out there, as they conduct their day-to-day business, to be cautious on the road, extend the safe following distance, and try and avoid crossing areas which might be flooded, especially the roads and bridges, so that we avoid incidences where vehicles might be swept away. And of course, not forgetting our public transport, taxis and buses. We're urging them also to try and avoid those areas which might be flooded. But from our side, we remain on high alert. We're hoping that our residents will work with us to be able to prevent any further incidents. And of course, most of our residents in our low-lying areas, they might be tempted to cross those river streams as and when they're conducting their day-to-day business. So we're urging them to refrain from crossing those river streams, and also monitor young kids to stay away from those areas, so that we can be able to prevent any further incidents which might occur.
What are some of the main areas that you are focusing on in the Greater Johannesburg region? Yeah,
the Greater Johannesburg region will be mostly, the areas which are mostly vulnerable will be our informal settlements. I would say all the informal settlements are our main focus, since we know that that's where we normally have challenges. And we have had a number of areas which most of our motorists know. Some of the roads which our motorists know are where that they normally flood when we have rainfalls like the ones which we're having now. So far I will say our informal settlements will be the most focus, but overall the whole city of Johannesburg, 7 regions. We are focusing on them. We're working together with other stakeholders like JMPD and the other department like infrastructure and the other departments in the city of Johannesburg to make sure that we coordinate, yes, and when we have emergencies, we respond together to be able to assist those affected residents.
Robert Mulaudzi, thanks very much for your time today indeed. That's just a wrap there in terms of what the picture is around emergency services responses to do over the course of the coming week, over this weekend as well. And I guess the big message coming out is heading into tomorrow as well, as matriculants will make their way towards the high schools. Many other learners will be making their way to school to just ensure that they are traveling safe to and from their workplaces as well, for those who happen to be traveling as well. So it may not necessarily just be for today and the remainder of today, but heading into the new week, perhaps people, even the city of Johannesburg and the residents of Gauteng and across the country would need to just be very wary of their travel arrangements as they head into the new week, given the excessive rain that we have been seeing over the last week and more specifically over the last 48 hours.
Yeah, definitely. Ahmed, Kajee, thank you very much for that update. You stay safe out there.